This is Harry Steele III. I'm asking the citizens of Bay Minette to vote for me for mayor August 25th. I have a great deal of experience in local government, having served for 15 years in various roles as a city planner, economic developer, and county manager in various places around the state, Gulf Shores, Birmingham, and Gadsden. I'm a Bay Minette native who's been in the private practice of law since 2011. Bay Minette has ignored its greatest asset, the Mobile-Tensas River Delta, for far too long. My platform includes a plan to annex to the river and the creation of a signature public project there. Equally as important are the issues of public safety reform and economic development. I've previously served our community on the North Baldwin Chamber Board of Directors, Baldwin County United Board of Directors, Leadership Baldwin County Steering Committee, the United Way of Baldwin County Board of Directors, and the South Alabama Volunteer Lawyers Program. I would appreciate your vote for me, Harry Steele III, on August 25th. If you'd like to know more about my platform, check out Backstory Podcast on Facebook or YouTube.
Paid for by Steele for Mayor, 601 North Shore Drive, Bay Minette, Alabama, 36507.
And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my hand.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele, backwoods Southern lawyer and candidate for mayor of my hometown of Bay Minette, Alabama. I have my partner in crime, Mr. Paul Rip, with me here today. He's having technical difficulties, so we're trying to stay as far apart as we can and both still be on camera. What's up, Mr. Rip?
Glad to be here. Pretty excited about the elections coming up Tuesday, which look like they might be delayed, but we'll have to wait and see. Just reminding everybody, the Rip Report is a not-for-profit consumer association.
And Raines, your skills are going to come into play later on today, your journalist skills. We're going to talk to Mayor Maddox here in a little while. How are things in Houston?
Well, we're doing just fine. We're holding it down, like they say here in Houston. Bought some strawberry Pop-Tarts today, a couple cases of water, and we are going to be ready for this little storm if it happens to show up and dump a little rain on us. Other than that, I've been doing some research, getting ready to talk to Tuscaloosa Mayor Walt Maddox later in the program. Really looking forward to that. Stand-up guy, and I'd like to get his opinion on a few things.
Well, we do have two tropical systems heading our way at the same time. Paul, you ever heard of that before? You lived in Belize.
I lived in Belize 16 years. I've never been sandwiched between two hurricanes like this. This is going to be very interesting.
Last time you said we're sure to get pwned if this thing comes between the tip of Cancun and the western tip of Cuba, which is exactly where Tropical Depression 14 is headed.
Well, if it touches land, it deviates. But, boy, if it goes straight through that cut and it stays in the water, then you can believe it's coming straight at us.
And then Tropical Storm Laura is actually out in the mid-Atlantic, bearing down on San Juan, and it looks like it's just going to skip right through the Straits of Florida and come bust us in the butt. They're showing Wednesday morning 75-mile-an-hour winds in Pensacola.
Woo!
Well, I think we'll have a better forecast outlook, better portrait of what the Gulf's going to look like this weekend. And that's important, Harry. Why is it important that we're going to make a decision this weekend?
Well, because I got an email from the League of Municipalities saying that the cities can each individually make the decision not to have the election because of inclement weather, or the Secretary of State can make that call, and that's going to happen Sunday night. So you heard that here first. We actually scooped the city on it. Surprise, surprise. So why is that important? We're in the middle of a global pandemic with 22,756,063 confirmed cases worldwide, with 794,814 deaths. The United States, on the other hand, has 5,589,013 deaths with, confirmed cases with 100 and, let's see, what are we up to, Paul? Is that right? 174,000?
Right. Correct.
I thought we were just over 150,000 last week.
No, 174.
All right. Well, I need to go back and look at my my information.
1,300 yesterday, I believe.
Well, let's see what the Alabama dashboard has to say. We know how reliable that damn site is. So they're saying we're at 107,000 total cases with right around 2,000. We're going to call it 2,000 confirmed deaths, 1,921. Of course, you see there's been a bit of a decline in the numbers overall, but we're still, we talked the other day, I guess yesterday, the testing came in at over 1,000 new confirmed cases. So we had a little bit of a lull because of the mask. Now the kids are back in school.
And football.
And everything else is opening up. So obviously we're going to see another escalation, right?
Right. What happened in Fairhope last night?
Tell us what happened.
Well, the first thing that happened was that the football stadium was packed. There was people saying that they hadn't seen that many people at a game in quite some time. And they were trying to enforce a mask, but the principal there said, well, you can't do anything about it because they go in there and take the mask off. And as I understand it, we had some national press that showed the Spanish Fort. I believe it was Spanish Fort, wasn't it? And
it was Spanish Fort playing at Fairhope.
Yeah. So, they panned the crowd. Nobody's got mask on. And to make things worse, they were handing out fans. The mayor, Sherry Sullivan, who's running for mayor there, did not make the Common Sense Campaign Forum last night, which has got them very, very upset because been scheduled for quite some time. All the mayor and council members showed up, and she was the only one that didn't. And then it was reported that she was at the football game handing out fans.
So let's watch that real quick. Let's see if I don't have that.
All right. So there's nothing like having a fan in the stand with nobody with mask on. I guess you could call it the COVID fan. Also,
COVID-19, as you can see, fans on the left at Latch Stadium in Mobile, limited to 16% capacity, complying with the social distancing rules for the most part. In Fairhope, though, a different story, as many were not wearing masks, and a lot of the kids were bunched up together, not socially distanced. Brianna Hollis joins us live tonight.
Wear their masks more. We required it. We were sending people back to the cars to get masks. And then they get in here, but our point is we can't make anybody do something. We encourage it. My announcer's been announcing it, social distance, and we're telling the people if there's an outbreak, there won't be high school football.
So there.
Yep. And
that.
Well,
COVID.
we just heard from RN from Thomas Hospital that said, thank God we didn't have the arts and crafts, and that was another thing that in Fairhope, the city council president, Jack Burrell, as well as Sherry Sullivan running for mayor, both wanted to take a chance and go on that with the arts and crafts show. Thank God we didn't. That was about 200,000 people usually show up. And then we look at the football game and we see that. So we'll wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Let's see what happens if we don't get a spike over there. People just need to take this more serious than they are. Particularly, if you're running for office, you should be, kind of leading by example, if you will.
So let's talk. You've said this a couple of times, Paul, and it's kind of nebulous. So
all right.
Sherry Sullivan used to be a city employee.
That's correct.
And she was appointed to the Arts Council Board of Directors at some point.
I think she worked actually through the chamber.
Okay,
on a
she
committee
was on
there.
that committee, and that committee was one layer of people who had to decide to do it, and then the city had to allow it.
Correct.
So they wanted to do it, but the city would not allow them to have the Arts Council.
Correct. From what I understand, the mayor just had an absolute fit and said, no way is this going to work. And finally, she was able to talk some sense into him. And, we also heard from a doctor back during that time that told us that thank God we didn't have it because of the Mardi Gras that they know in New Orleans and Mobile, it was obvious that they had a spike from that many people getting together. So that's what we got to watch. I think that's very unfortunate what happened last night. And like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 2 weeks.
Let's talk about some more unfortunate expenditures of taxpayer money. So the Baldwin County School System, in their infinite wisdom, went and purchased a bunch of cameras from some Chinese thermal camera company. And then they got the wrong kind of cameras that aren't made to look at multiple subjects at one time.
$1 million.
So let's just see what this is a response video. So let's see what they say.
44 thermal cameras to check students for fever. The vendor claimed the cameras could check 30 students a second, but an independent industry organization says those cameras may not be as effective as school leaders think.
And we don't believe that it's technically possible to take many measurements at once that are, at the same time useful and accurate measurements.
IPVM tests and reports on surveillance products worldwide. The group produced the report critical of the school system's purchase and use of the cameras.
If the school plans to use these cameras to screen many people at once, then they're in violation of FDA guidelines.
Those guidelines call for temperatures to be checked one person at a time. IPVM also says the cameras won't be effective at measuring temperatures and perhaps missing many fevers because the school system did not purchase what's known as a black body device to go with them. That would have added thousands to the cost of each camera. In layman's terms, the black body device provides a reference temperature for the camera.
This is a known 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and so now the camera can make a decision based on how hot or cold a object is compared to that.
But the chief financial officer for the school system says they never intended to buy that device or follow FDA guidelines.
We're not looking to follow any guidelines, so you guys can shove your complaints up your rear end.
We're going to spend our $1 million the way we want to.
Rains.
Yeah.
What?
It wasn't. Here's the thing. It's snake oil. It's good old-fashioned, pure and simple snake oil. And
it was so they might as well have just hung like a camera housing with nothing in it up there and saved the $1 million, is what I'm saying.
Basically, Eddie Tyler pushed for a local company called Hunter Security. All right, they're right there in Bay Minette. He said, look, I got $1 million to spend. What can you get me for $1 million that I can tell people is going to fix this problem? And they said, have we got a product for you? Did the superintendent order those cameras directly from China? No. He passes it off and said, I trust the vendor to purchase the right products. Well, if you go to a car dealership and say, hey, I got $1,000, what can you put me in for $1,000? They say, is that down or is that total? Now, they can put you in a car for $1,000, but what you're going to get is a piece of junk, which is exactly what Baldwin County got. They got sold on snake oil. That's $1 million just flew right out of the pockets of every student in that county, every teacher in that county, every parent in that county that pays school taxes. Every single person in that county that pays into the taxes just got skunked. Just completely, as my father liked to say, they put the hat on y'all. $1 million. Now, $1 million here, $1 million there. Pretty soon, you're talking about a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
We would never pass up
the bar for education really high.
We would never pass up the opportunity to line our buddies' pockets in a crisis. Is the lesson learned here? Just like the lesson we learned by Trip Pittman taught us during the BP oil spill, while he's supposed to be shepherdizing the money. So
nothing surprises me anymore.
Well, nothing related to this thing surprises me. What surprises me is that there seems to be some leadership in the state. They're just on the wrong end of the political spectrum for my taste. And we're going to get into an interview with Walt Maddox here for a second.
Mayor, it's certainly a privilege to have you on here today. We're happy to have you with us here on the Backstory podcast down here in Baldwin County, Alabama. You're the current mayor of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, T-Town, and you've been mayor since 2005. Before that, in the city council, and you've got some serious bona fide that you bring to the table. You're a graduate of University of Alabama, Auburn, or University of Alabama, and well, that was the biggest
Easy there.
all day.
Right.
And you are you're the member of many influential boards and councils and whatnot, but most notably, you are a senior fellow at the Program on Crisis Leadership at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. That's pretty impressive, and that's going to play into the two big questions and two big things I want to talk to you about today. You, as a former gubernatorial candidate and current mayor of one of the bigger cities in Alabama, how is serving on that fellowship committee at Harvard at the Kennedy School, how has that benefited your general governance, not just since the tornado, but most recently?
Well, what it gives me is the opportunity to talk to some of the brightest minds when it comes to crisis management. Now, certainly, the world has never seen anything like this since the 2018 Spanish influenza. So the opportunity to share what we're experiencing right now, to learn from best practices, to either have affirmed the things that you believe are doing right or understand the consequences of the things that you've implemented or the indirect consequences that can happen. So for me, it's been really a great reliance on some information that most mayors don't have an opportunity to be a part of. But it also, this crisis actually reaffirms the general principles when facing something like a pandemic or a natural disaster. The most important thing is to be prepared, and the second most important thing to do is ensure that your response can meet the crisis. And thus far, we've been able to do that. And a third thing that I'm certainly going to be adding to future lectures is the ability to adapt. With this crisis, you can be in a very good situation today, like we are in Tuscaloosa, and in 2 weeks, you can be in full-on crisis mode like we were 3 weeks ago. And so this is an on-again, off-again crisis that's very hard to manage. People can rally around a tornado that destroys 13% of your city, and the rebuilding of that has been done, maybe not necessarily specific to Tuscaloosa, but there's communities that have been through it. There are certain lessons that have been learned. With this, there are none. And I do sense something that's new to the crisis leadership perspective that'll have to be researched and understood. That is the fatigue. There is a COVID fatigue like I've never seen, layered on top of the politicization of COVID-19 itself. That is probably the most difficult challenge we face, and we're all learning. And thankfully, being a senior fellow at Harvard, I get the opportunity to consult with some of the brightest minds in the world.
I feel like the word crisis is something that we're going to be focusing on in this discussion, because after some analysis, I feel like you are dealing with two very current, very city-specific crises in Tuscaloosa. The first being your crime rate. You have the highest violent crime rate for your size in the South. You have a statistic from 2018, that when the most recent statistics were released by the FBI, that 1 in 19 people have a chance of being a victim of a violent crime in Tuscaloosa. You've introduced Project Unity. Can you give us a Reader's Digest version of what Project Unity is about and what your support is for that?
Well, I haven't seen that study, and I would say conversely, when you look at our crime over the last 12 years, we've actually had an 18% reduction. I do know there was a study done by some group connected with neighborhoods, I can't remember the last part of it, that was statistically invalid. So I may have to disagree with you with that. I'd have to see the study, obviously, to validate it or not. But Project Unity certainly is about trying to address the issues that we see, especially with juvenile crime. One of the reasons why I ran for governor was because our correction system, which is now under federal court order, just continues to release individuals back in the community. Our juvenile justice system barely has enough people to even operate. DHR is so underfunded that so many people fall through the cracks, and our mental health system is crumbling. Today in Tuscaloosa, 30% of the inmates at Tuscaloosa Metro Jail are on a psychotropic drug. That means it's the second largest mental health facility in the state of Alabama. And oh, by the way, those who are at Taylor Hardin who were found innocent because of insanity are now being transferred into Bryce Hospital, a less secure facility, because they're out of room. All those things are why in Alabama we're seeing rising crime rates, especially in urban areas. And cities are being the ones trying to address it. TPD continues to arrest and rearrest the same individuals. So the idea with Project Unity is the state's not going to change its ways. I've campaigned across this state, and talking about criminal justice reform just doesn't really excite people. And you just will never politically be able to connect enough dots. So we're going to have to take more on ourselves if we're going to truly address this problem of crime in our community. And unfortunately, PD is responding to something that is a symptom. The greater disease is poverty and lack of education, lack of economic opportunity. And that's where we're going to really be focused in the years ahead, because we've got to change that dynamic. If the state's not going to be in a position to do it, as much as I would like to think there's some people who within state government that understand it, that want to change the dynamic, ultimately the answer is money. And no one's willing to pass a lottery. No one's willing to look at other revenue sources to deal with that. And cities are going to be on our own. So knowing that, we launched Project Unity.
Okay. And I apologize if the statistics I presented were in any way skewed or things like that. That's some brief research that I did the other day. But
now, what did Mark Twain say? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Right. Statistics. But
you're right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You could say that there is. We can't just whitewash the crime problem in Tuscaloosa.
No.
We can't wash it away with statistics. We know it's there. And the reason I asked about it is because I like what you're pushing with Project Unity. I think a return to community policing as an underlying theme in there is a great thing, but that leads me into how are you going to handle the coming crisis of Alabama football? You've got a community that you told, and I realized that, you were on some smaller media outlets before you came on here. I think you talked to somebody named Anderson Cooper. I'm glad you came on here to really reach a wider audience. Alabama football's $250 million for the Tuscaloosa economy. And you told Fox 10 Philadelphia back last month there's not going to be any fans in the stadium, but we're still going to see people show up and tailgate these games because Nick Saban's not going to not play football. They've got to play. And it's going to happen whether there's fans in the stands or not.
School football is back opening night on
what? Okay. Anyway, you've got a crime problem that you've launched a new initiative to help tackle. You're going to have a crime problem when you have a couple 100,000 people show up for Alabama football this year. You've got 40,000 kids at UA. You've got another probably 25, 30,000 between Stillman and Shelton. You've got a college town, and you're going to have college football. The SEC is going to play college football, whether it's a championship or not. You've seen what happened in Sturgis. I'm at the motorcycle rally in North Dakota. How is your city going to prepare for Alabama football showing up this year, whether you want it to or not?
Well, the good news for us is that we've already baked in terms of our budget. And thank goodness, us and Huntsville are the only triple-rated cities in Alabama, and we've got strong reserves. We actually paid ourselves back after the April 27 tornado. So we've already baked in no football season for the remainder of fiscal 20. Our fiscal years run October 1, September 30th. The way the SEC schedule came out is our first game in Tuscaloosa is 10-3. Which will give us 5 games within this fiscal, which will really help our 21 budget. So that being said, I talked to Greg Burns this morning. I talked to Stuart Bell nearly every single day. We're going to be working with the university on this because right now the capacity is 20,000. Assuming there's no ups or downs in the next 5 to 6 weeks, 20,000 will be good for our hotel market because this is going to be all SEC games. It's not like we're playing Sisters of the Poor. We're going to be playing SEC games. And so
that's a homecoming game.
Yeah, those are going to be filling up hotel rooms, so that's a good thing. So that's a positive. Now you're right though. We've put together a project team. We're working closely with the university on how we're going to handle all of these issues. What if we still have masking? What if we still have the 6 feet of social distancing? We just don't know. And that's getting back to what I told you earlier. Every day is a new outcome that none of us have ever been through in our careers. And that's the great guesses that we're having to make right now. I told our team members, my senior staff the other day, I said, our job is to make the least bad decision. And that's a hell of a place to be in.
Yeah.
And so the short answer of it is we don't know today. We're trying to find answers for tomorrow. The one benefit Tuscaloosa is going to have, and I can't remember how Auburn is following. I see an Auburn cup right there in the view screen. So I don't know if that's meant as a jab at me or not. But
I'm an alum.
I can't remember if their first game is the 26th of the 3rd. But we will probably go visit an SEC school like Baton Rouge, or if Auburn has a home game, go visit Auburn. And Mayor Anders down there is a very dear friend of mine, and Auburn does a fantastic job to see how they're handling, because they're going to have the same issues. And we want to see how they're handling it as well. So it's going to be a combination of us trying to get some experience from other cities and then putting into place things like maybe, and this is a maybe, we certainly haven't decided, closing down University Boulevard and making it into a tailgate area all the way leading up to the stadium where you could separate people out. I mean, there's a lot of things, and then you could expand outdoor dining and outdoor entertainment and things like that. Try to create as much of an atmosphere as you can, sans 100,000 in the stadium and 30,000 outside the stadium.
I feel like Raines has been bogarting the interview. And so I'm going to
Sorry.
jump in there for a minute.
I'm sorry. As the only former professional journalist here, I thought I'd take the lead on it. But
Well, I do grill people's ass on the stand for a living. So I'm not here to grill you, but to praise you, Mayor. This is a novel coronavirus. By the way, my name's Harry Steele. I'm a lawyer here in Baldwin County, and I'm running for mayor in my little hometown. Right before we got on, I got an email message from the Alabama League of Municipalities saying that the cities down here who could be affected by as many as 2 tropical cyclones at the same time may on Sunday night to decide to postpone our election that is supposed to happen on Tuesday. So that's been interesting in my world.
Thank you, 2020. It's just
right. So back here in the
because one hurricane in the Gulf just is never enough.
Right.
Never enough, yeah.
On top of a pandemic and everything else. So you and I have met before many years ago. I came over from the city of Alabaster on mutual aid after the tornadoes and worked on one of your structural recovery assessment teams for.
Thank you.
And stayed in Rose Tower, which thank God has been torn down now. The last time I was on campus, it was gone, but that was a moldy mess of a place to have to stay for a couple of weeks. But anyway, so I'm familiar with your city. I think it's a beautiful town. And just so that people know, Alabama is a very small state, 4.9 million people total. And Mayor Maddox is the mayor of our 5th largest city, about 100,000 people. Is that?
102 was the last census, 102 and change.
So is that when the students are all in town, or is that minus the students? I mean, you could say Gulf Shores has 55,000 people, but Christmas Day is 4,700 there.
We know through census data, only about 30% of students actually complete their census data. So that's probably 9,000 to 10,000 students, and then the rest would be those that live in the metro area. Of course, census is going to be another challenge for us, because a month before the census start, 27,000 out-of-state students left the city. Right. So by the time the next census rolls around, we may be a city of about 4,000. We'll be competing with Loxley down there for some ADECA grants. But it's
as long as y'all keep getting your BP money, man. That's all I care about.
Hey, that's right. Hey, look, if I was governor, one of the platforms I had was that the communities or regions that earn the disaster money get the disaster money. And because I've lived through it, and I've seen other communities who, again, I don't understand. If your community is the one that took, in our case, 40% of the deaths and the destruction that happened in Alabama that day, and you received, 15% of the funding, total funding, it just pisses you off a little bit, you know. And
there's a lot of volunteer fire departments that got built over in Perry County off of money that should have come to the city of Tuscaloosa, is my understanding of how all those chips fell.
Well, and that's just, that's the nature of, again, that's my background of going through it. You certainly understand it, and you have a deeper appreciation of just what you've got to go through. But, for us, the other thing I will say, though, is 7 times a year, we're Alabama's largest city. Starting from about Thursday. Actually, it's probably about 20 days a year because people start coming in on Thursday and Friday. So we've become Alabama's largest city for about 15 to 20 days a year, which is really a logistical challenge for our team, but we do a great job. And we've got a great partner. This is not just some rhetoric. We've got a really great partner in UA. They are a fantastic partner to the city.
Well, I think Mr. Rip has a question for you. Go for it.
Yeah, Mayor, what I was curious about was I know that tornado just had to be mind-boggling to deal with. And I was wondering, what was the biggest thing that you took away from that now is applicable to what you're facing with the COVID thing?
Patience.
Really?
When the tornado happened, it was my first major crisis to deal with. And you were so moved by the urgency of now. Now, certainly the humanitarian aspect of that you can never wait on. But these other things that are ever promised to you or that seem urgent, this time I've understood the art of patience. That when someone comes down from Washington and says you can expect X, Y, and Z, the truth is you cannot expect X, Y, and Z. And so patience in working through these issues has really benefited me. I think the other thing, quite frankly, that's helped me is the relationships that I've built over time that I didn't have 9 years ago. The relationships I have within state government, federal government, through the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. I have relationships now that I didn't have back then, and that has really been the two things that have helped us. And so, and let me throw in one other now that I'm talking through the answer that's happened just because of being here and being in my 4th term, is that the majority of people in Tuscaloosa trust what you're doing, even if they don't always agree. And that's a good benefit. A new mayor thrown into this would have difficulty of making some of the tough decisions, whereas I get a little bit more street cred just because I've been here and they know me and and I can speak in such a way that even if they disagree, I think they know my heart.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, while you're not a constitutional scholar, you have to have the same opinion that I do, that we have got to set fire to this damn Constitution of the state of Alabama.
We need to burn it.
Copy New Jersey's. Who gives a crap? Pick a state. We'll go copy their Constitution.
Well, and this is really the interesting thing that's happened in this emergency that's never happened before. And I'm not an attorney. And even when I talk to our attorneys here, it's hard to explain. But Governor Ivey, to her credit, has really let local governments in Alabama be able to exercise a greater amount of autonomy than we normally do. Being a Dillon rural state, we only have the power invested into us that's given by the legislature. But we're now being able to do under police powers that's been interpreted from an AG's opinion, we're being able to do a lot more to handle this, which I think is a really good thing, by the way.
Well, it is here because our sheriff has refused to enforce the governor's order. Well, Mr. Rip here sued our sheriff, and I represented him, and the judge let him slip the hook by saying that what was his explanation? Notification is a form of enforcement.
Correct.
We'll just notify them that they're breaking the law.
And that was one of the we did it as a point of writ of mandamus, and we didn't really.
And those are pretty serious and pretty rare to be able to box somebody into a mandamus.
Right. But the one thing I wanted to ask you was, how are you? I mean, have you got a lot of people within your community that are, just hammering you over, well, I'm not going to wear the mask. I don't want to wear the mask. Are you getting a lot of that back, or just what you think is normally acceptable?
Within the city, really not a lot. Now, certainly Tuscaloosa County is huge. I mean, it's the size of Rhode Island. It's like Baldwin County, I think, in terms of land mass. I think y'all are number 1 and we're number 2. So your opinions can stretch from one side of the county to the other. But within the metro, it's pretty well adopted. And, unfortunately, sadly, we've started to have people die within the community who were known. And there's something about when somebody is known or has more of a profile that people go, oh my God.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're starting to reach a point where that's happened, and they think, well, maybe that mayor's right. Maybe we do need to wear a mask.
Which is why I think when the beloved librarian at Fairhope High School dies from this, we're going to rethink the whole opening the school things again.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
I think this is a test run.
Our city schools decided that, and they've been joining our incident command briefings we have on a daily basis. But I told the superintendent the other day, I said, he decided to delay school to after the first 9 weeks. I said, you're going to look like a genius in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because the thing that we're facing here in Tuscaloosa, but you've got the same situation, is that this week students came back. So that means in 3 weeks we'll have a surge. And then we have Labor Day in 3 weeks. So we'll have another surge. And then we have winter with the.
Hey, man, we're going to have to cut you off right there because you're making way too much sense.
Right.
Please stop talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm afraid that a Scud missile is heading for your location right now, Mayor. Please stop talking all this straight talk.
Really, seriously, you just can't believe some of the things that we're having to go through down here. We had a football game last night.
All of these things are so obvious.
It's on national television, an example of a football game in Lower Alabama, and they pan the crowd, and no one is wearing a bloody mask.
Fairhope versus Spanish Fort last night. And then they go to the principal, and he says, well, hell, we made them go back to their car and get their mask, but once they get inside, they just take them off. What are we supposed to do?
Kick
the damn football off the field, everybody'd leave.
Well, we had the same thing happen at a local high school outside the city. The county has its own school system. Right. And so you saw the same thing, and my heart just drops because, my heart drops because we're all working 7 days a week trying to protect this community. And we still have, I'm probably going to get in trouble here. Maybe this will only play in Baldwin County. We still have people who are supposed to be responsible and who are educators in some sense, who should embrace science and data, who are refusing to do that because they're scared of a political backlash. Now, history is going to judge that very poorly. I mean, our morality should judge that poorly, okay? But history is going to judge that very poorly as well. And I would just rather have my rear end voted out of office, but be on the right side of history, because it is, to me, it's a shame that we're being this flippant. And I will say there's a huge difference between what UA can do. What UA and Auburn can do, they can protect their players. And the UABs and the Troys and the South Alabamas, they have the resources, they have the control mechanism. Yeah. But high school football, you can't control those players. No. You can't control where they go home. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, and I think it's right now it's a fool's errand, because it's unless something changes, it's going to lead to more problems in September and October than
so Mayor, I wanted to let you know you have an extra responsibility now, because my niece is up there and she just pledged KO last week. So you have, it's a lot of responsibility, man. 100,000 people.
Well, my daughter is there. She's she pledged KD, so they're out there on sorority.
Well, I'm sure they hate each other. There'll be a big South Alabama, North Alabama throwdown before it's over with.
I was the only person cheering against my daughter. It's cheaper if she wouldn't have got into anything. So I was hoping that.
There you go.
Taylor, how do you feel?
I'm just looking forward to the pictures from the COVID-tillion this year.
Yeah, well,
it'll be like Rain's trip to the prom. They'll all be by themselves.
I was king of the prom, I'll have you know.
Hey, let me just say this, though. As a father who was watching their daughter go through all this, we had the whole time, over a 1 week period, I got 1 minute with my daughter. We had to stand across the street. They let them come across the street, take a quick picture without their mask. Of course, people found that picture and said, oh, the mayor's daughter is not, she got several hundred.
Of course, you'll get grilled for that.
Yeah. But, I was very impressed with what they did. I mean, UAPD, frankly, would not let you cross the street. Somebody said, well, you need to go tell them. I said, they're not my police department. I'm not getting tased. I don't need that. That'd be the worst thing that happened to me.
Well, Mayor, we certainly appreciate your time. Mr. Rip, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I just have to tell you that I truly respect the position that you're in, because, you know, not only is T-Town its own little municipality, but like you said, you're sitting right there on top of the college. And I know that when I lived there, I would have been your worst nightmare. I would not have been paying attention or whatnot. So someone has to make the decision, and it's never going to be popular with everybody. And I don't think anyone really understands what it takes to be a mayor and run a city, particularly in a hurricane or a COVID, and the responsibility it takes in having to make those decisions. So good luck to you, Mayor, and I'll try to get a fair warning when I'm headed that way.
Thank you. Let me know. You could still be our worst nightmare, and we don't even know it yet. Hey, y'all stay safe with what's coming up this weekend. Good luck in that election. I'll be following you closely. Well, let me just give you some advice. The night you win, I want you to take a deep breath, look around the room, because I'll be the most friends you'll ever have again.
I'm not so sure.
Unequivocally, one of the most true political statements ever made. That is absolutely true.
Yeah. We got to let you go. Too much truth going on here, Mayor.
Y'all take care. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks for joining us, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Well, the first thing I want to report on is the lanyap. I've had, again, a couple of people calling me about, can I get lanyap in Bay Minette? Can I get it out there at Floribama? Yes. Lanyap also has a distribution list where they have the magazine for free. So just go to Lanyap, go to the distribution list, and you'll find where the box is. The feature this week is, of course, some of the NAPI 2020 awards for everything from restaurants down. It's a very thick publication. I think everybody would really enjoy having it. Covers music and everything else.
Didn't Mayor Wilson win for best or hardest working official?
Correct. And that's the fourth year in a row. Fairhope Mayor Wilson, hardest working Eastern Shore public official. And 1 or 2 years is pretty good, but 4 years in a row, I'm glad that she's recognized for that. Also saw where Jerry Carl, who won this last runoff on the Republican part for the 1st Congressional District, he's got an ad in there thanking everyone. Of course, he's coming up for the final run. He's had to run 3 times to get that seat, but believe that he'll prevail there. Also, I noticed that Milam and Milam, my attorney that I've gone to court with twice, has got a small advertising in there, and I'd give a shout out to him. I was very, very pleased working with him on that litigation to make things right in Fairhope. That was over the Publix project. The next thing is the RIP Report voter guide. If you go to ripreport.com, Fairhope, we did a little voter guide as well as everything else. So if you go to the RIP Report, you can go on, especially the .com site, if you don't like the Facebook sites, and go back and read the back articles or the current article, which are quite a bit during the election time. Now, Fairhope, we are pushing in Fairhope on the Eastern Shore. We have a very high amount, 10, 12 different candidates running under the Catalyst banner. We're asking voters there's a lot of selections in these towns. You don't have to vote on the Catalyst ticket. The Catalyst ticket is representing everything that's going wrong right now with our quality of life. So think twice about it. Now, the dream ticket in Fairhope is going to be Mayor Wilson for her 2nd term. I don't think she's going to run after that. I'm not sure, but she should certainly be given a chance to finish many very good projects that she started. Deb Hopkins is running against Jack Burrell. Mr. Burrell definitely needs to go, as well as Boone and Brown, Joshua Gammon, and Howell Gibbons. So just remember Hopkins, Gammon, and Gibbons, and Wilson. Not the 3Bs. One thing that's happening in Fairhope that's real interesting is a lot of people think municipalities have insurance that covers everything, and that's not exactly true. In Fairhope, many years ago, we had litigation involving the Triangle lawsuit. And I'll never forget the night I attended a city council meeting there, and the attorney was Kane O'Rear, and he was in front of the council, turned around and looked at the entire city attendants, the citizens that were there, and held up his right hand and looked at us and said, "I'm telling you right now, on this lawsuit, you will not have to pay anything. The insurance company will pay it, or the other party will pay it." Well, ladies and gentlemen, we ended up paying $3 million worth of tax money. Now, the exact same thing is happening again. Early in Mayor Wilson's, when she was elected, she decided to take multiple lawsuits and hand them over to a specified attorney to try to weed those out and get rid of some of these pending lawsuits. The council stepped in, the present council, and did not want to settle or even talk about one case, which was the Breland case, Buddy Breland case, which goes back 10, 12 years. And it's a planning and zoning case, but now the insurance company has just won a case where now Fairhope is going to have to pay all the legal fees for this case, win, lose, or draw. And this is absolutely on the heads of the council because they would not listen. Early on, we were in discussions with Mr. Breland. He was willing to, you walk away, I'll walk away. But the council refused to do it. So now we're going to have from $500,000 to $1 million. God only knows what that's going to cost. Now, the downside of that is if Mr. Breland prevails in his Supreme Court case, and that's where the case is right now pending, we could get that any day. If he prevails with that, Fairhope could be looking at damages in the millions. Again, remember, it's the 3Bs that did this, Brown, Boone, and Burrell. So you have an opportunity this time to get rid of these individuals and get some fresh faces in there. And that's about it right now, Harry, on what's happening in Fairhope and Lanyap.
All right, Raines, I got one for you.
Bring it.
You ready? I don't necessarily want to watch the video. I want to talk about the fact that Rand Paul is dressed like a Bond villain during this Senate hearing on the United States Postal Service. Are you seeing that image? The white T-shirt and the blue blazer with it actually even has the quantum lapel pin from Quantum of Solace on. I mean,
let me tell you, if I lived next door to Rand Paul, that'd be two neighbors that knocked him in the face on a fairly regular basis.
So I typically agree with a lot of his positions, but let me just kind of nutshell this for you. Literally in his Bond villain outfit, he asked the guy who's given millions to the Trump campaign, who's now running the Postal Service, is there anything that keeps you from doing your job because it's a governmental entity? And I'm thinking, that is you can't run everything like a business. This is a constitutionally required service that the United States is required to provide. Just like the court system. And here in Alabama, we've taken the position that, well, people who use the court system should pay for the court system, which is how a war on drugs became a war on drug users. Right. And how all these increases to court costs, is prohibitive for some people. They have to save up for a month to come up with the $400 or, to be more accurate, $300 filing fee to get divorced in Alabama. Right? I mean, all these unintended consequences that come along with these arguments when we start trying to say, well, it needs to be run more like a business. No, it's a function of government. It was never meant to be profitable. We knew Of course it's a loser when you pay the same amount for postage to send a letter from Mobile, Alabama to my house as you do from Kenny Buckport to my house, right? It's not about being economically feasible. It's a service. It's a function of government, and we're just going to have to figure out some way to pay for it.
It's a lifeline. It's a lifeline for a lot of people getting medication and everything.
So listen, here in Baldwin County, how is it going to affect us? Last week we talked about this new process for jurors, right? We're going back to court September 21st. So, the court system is absolutely dependent on the Postal Service. Everything's return receipt, right? Mm-hmm. Everything we do, we depend on them. So how in the world, what kind of a bizarro world do I live in where we're having a serious discussion about restructuring the Postal Service in anticipation of some election that's coming up?
In the middle of a pandemic.
Exactly. I mean, this is really what we're wasting our breath on. Fund the thing. You're required to by the Constitution. You don't have any choice, Congress.
Well, we'll see where it goes.
Raines, you got an opinion on this?
I think that everything happening right now in 2020 is something that we'll be teaching in graduate level policy courses.
At the Kennedy School of Government?
Kennedy School of Government, at the Stennis Institute for Government in Mississippi. They'll be teaching on this. 2020 will be the new 68, I got a feeling. And I hope we learn something from all this. I really do. I've gotten to the point where I've gotten so cynical and jaded that it's hard for me to just it's like my negativity is just on a loop. And so to find one thing positive, I'm looking at maybe my son and his children, if they decide to attend college, will learn about this year and learn about the lessons we were taught.
Well, Raines, you're mentioning this might be another 1968. Well, 1968, I was a Marine in Vietnam, and I can tell you that we have learned nothing since 1968 when it comes to wars. Nothing.
So I'm going to take y'all back to 1958. Remember how we talked about Albert Patterson, the Attorney General-elect, getting shot dead in the streets of Phoenix City?
Mm-hmm.
So last week when we got done with our podcasts, I threw on a fishing shirt and a pair of shorts, and I was headed to Little River. I was loading up a kayak when I got a call that one of my clients had been arrested in a drug raid. And so because it was a drug raid, I didn't know if it was the county drug task force that had arrested her or what. So I threw my ID on around my neck and headed up to the county jail. Went to the sheriff's department first. They didn't know anything about a drug raid in Bay Minette. So I went around to the Sally Port. Not booked in yet. And I was walking across the crosswalk over to the City of Bay Minette Police Department to inquire if they had my client in custody when I ran into the police chief right at 2:00 in the afternoon last Friday. And I'm reading from my ethics. I drove to Montgomery on Monday and filed an ethics complaint against him. And
this is outside the building?
This is on the sidewalk outside the building. So I said that I'm an attorney and candidate for mayor in Bay Minette, Alabama at approximately 2 p.m. on 8/14/20. I went to the Bay Minette Police Department to inquire after a criminal client who was in fact in their custody. Now that's maybe important in the criminal case. The chief cursed me, was physically shaking, and put his hand on his firearm at least 3 times. That's a very brief and accurate description of what happened without going into a whole lot of detail. So after his tirade was over, about the longest 30 seconds of my life, the only retort I made was that he had to know if I won this election, he needed to clean his desk out, right? So I went on into the foyer of the police department to ask the lady at reception if they had my client in custody. When I asked, he came running up with a couple of other officers and again told me to leave under threat of removal. So
to leave the building?
To get out of the building.
Wow.
Oh.
So I immediately left there, went and turned in my candidate form that's required for me to file every Friday. This waiver of report was filed at 2:20. And so then shortly thereafter, I went over to the city of Bay Minette and filed a complaint with them. And at the same time, I filed a open records request for the camera in the foyer because, or any camera that may have caught my likeness or my voice. And between that period of time, and it turns out that the camera in the foyer is non-functional of the Bay Minette Police Department. They got all this great 4K video crashes and everything else, but they
should get one of the Chinese cameras.
Well, I think that could have handled me because there was only one person in the room and everybody else was behind the glass over there. But yeah, threat of removal in a public building where I'm trying to do my job.
And what had him upset enough to...
So listen, this is what makes him think it's okay. Remember, Paul, you were there. Listen to this.
Well, Harry, you are entitled to any animus that's directed against you. You have no good purpose in any of the things you're doing other than to muck rake around, and everybody knows it.
So that was when we went to the North Baldwin utility meeting, and that's the mayor talking to me. They've all been given license, open season.
Yep.
Pull no punches. Mr. Rip, how many ethics complaints did you file against different officials with the city of Bay Minette? 5?
5.
Have you heard anything back from them?
I've heard nothing from any of them.
So when I was up there Monday filing my ethics complaint, I said my client filed one, and I filed one against the sheriff. Said y'all had 30 days to investigate. Guess what they said? Well, Mr. Steele, it usually takes us about 180 days.
Right, and then while you're up there, you called me asking about the complaint I filed on Mr. Robert Brown, councilman in Fairhope, and they asked you what my phone number was, which is on the first page of the form of the complaint that I filed. So, I don't expect anything back from the Ethics Commission, but, Harry, we also wrote a letter April 24th to the Baldwin County District Attorney, Robert Wilters, and I've got no reply on that. And that was involving the Donardi case, the McSherry case, where the lady was knocked off the bar stool. And so we complained to the Attorney General and the Baldwin County District Attorney to please give us some sort of reply. We've got no reply from him, no reply from the Attorney General, and no reply from the Ethics Commission. Now, I'm talking about no even courtesy letter saying they got the letter.
And there's also a letter back when all this kicked off in September. We wrote him a rather lengthy letter about the goings on.
Right.
And no response to that either. And
right.
He also has a Bob Will sign in his yard. Just, I gave him $100 when he ran for DA.
Well,
I forgot about that.
I hope people in Baldwin County are paying attention, particularly in the Fairhope, Spanish Fort, Bay Minette, and Daphne area. These catalyst candidates, they're all wrapped up into this together. They are the good old boys.